everyone, and welcome so much for joining us today. My name is Valerie Plumpus. My pronouns are she and hers, and I'm Equality California's National Policy Director based in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much to the generous support from Sempra Energy and from the AT&T Foundation. Equality California is able to help our LGBTQ community respond to the COVID-19 crisis. So I hope that you've already seen our website. If you haven't already done so, I suggest that you take a look. It's COVID-19 at eqca.org. We've got this great website. It has provides a ton of links to a wide range of services on employment, on housing, on food assistance, legal aid, if you're experiencing domestic violence, just a number of resources that we're providing at the federal and the state and the local level. We've also been doing a number of these webinars. This is our sixth one. And basically all of them are intended to help people contend with the economic crisis that's been caused by the pandemic. And so we've been helping people to navigate, in a number of areas, most of them having to do with employment. Today is our sixth one. As I said, our topic today is navigating job search and remote work during COVID-19. So we're going to talk a little bit about trends in job postings, how to use Indeed for the job search, how to pivot to remote work and these sorts of issues. And we really hope that these will resonate with our audience. 30 to 40 million people have lost their jobs, and their lives are, super precarious. And people are being creative and working in different ways than they had, prior to the pandemic. Side gigs and side hustles are something that have really become essential to people's household incomes. Another thing that if people have a specific issue that may not be addressed on our website, we have a helpline that's been created. All of us on staff, not all of us on staff, but 4 or 5 of us on staff take turns answering the phone, and we help people with their personal circumstances. So that if you leave a message on the helpline, we will give you a call back. Most of the phone calls we've fielded have been with people who've lost their jobs, maybe they've lost their health care, they've lost their benefits, and they really need help. So please feel free to go to a helpline and ask questions, and we'd really like to support you. So today we have an amazing speaker. His name is Taylor Meadows. He's with Indeed. And I must say he's really got the most incredible title in the world. It's called Indeed Evangelist. So I'll be introducing him in just a second. But so everybody knows that all of our webinars are recorded. They remain accessible. You can find them on our website. You can post questions afterwards. If you've got questions today, please post them in our chat box, and we will be answering them throughout the webinar. So right now on our screen, you should be able to see a little poll question. This is great for our speaker. Are you currently looking for a job or a side gig? So you can respond, and then Taylor will find it helpful. So Taylor, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really thrilled that you're with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So I think that you're going to be sharing your screen and giving us your thoughts and on how to navigate a job search in this troubling and challenging time.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you asked me to join in. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today. And for those who will be dialing at a later time, we know specifically right now at Indeed how tough it is in this economic climate right now, in this political climate. We know that there have been a lot of variables that have impacted people's jobs and their livelihood. So we've put together this content piece to make sure that you know what resources you have available to you, at least from an Indeed perspective, as one of the biggest job sites in the world. We have about almost 300 million people that visit our site every single month. And so we want to just make sure that you're armed with all the necessary tools you need as you navigate this. I do, of course, want to kick off by saying that on behalf of Indeed and personally, our thoughts to the Blake family up in Kenosha and everything going on with riots. Indeed proudly stands with the Black Lives Matter movement. And I just wanted to acknowledge that our hearts are with the family right now. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and share. I have about 20 to 30 minutes of content for you today. And then what we are going to do is then transition into Q&A. And then if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn after our session today, if you have any specific questions about your situation or whatnot, I would be happy to make myself available for you. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and I will get us kicked off. So as Valerie said, today we're going to be talking about what it means to navigate job search and remote work during COVID-19. So I actually said my name is Taylor Meadows. I am an evangelist at Indeed. That is my actual job title that is in my Workday HRIS system at work. And essentially, my role is very unique in the sense that I do one-on-one consultation with a lot of clients, a lot of employers who use our website to find talent and post their jobs. But I also speak at a lot of conferences and I do a lot of webinars to really educate audiences around the world what it is that Indeed is doing to innovate, especially during times like this, and ways in which you, the job seeker, can use this the most effective way possible. I've been at Indeed for about 3.5 years now. I came to Indeed from LinkedIn, so I've been in the game for quite a while. I spent 5 years at Apple prior to that, and I live downtown Chicago. So lovely to be with all of you. So just to kind of summarize everything for you today, from an organizational perspective at Indeed, we care a lot about diversity, inclusion, and belonging, not just internally, but externally here as well. I want to let you know that we have just a myriad of resources available for you on the onset. And so if you were to visit Indeed.com right now, at the very top of the page, you're going to see a link for COVID-19 resources. That is our landing page dedicated to all things finding a job during this time. So an extension of what we're going to be talking about today. My amazing job seeker experience team at Indeed has put that together. They've spent a lot of time building that out, and it's a completely free resource for you. But as you can see here, right? So I actually participated in all these events. This is on the right-hand side here is our New York City Pride Parade. We are active in Pride parades all around the world in a variety of different cities that we have offices. And I have to say that our Pride affiliation group has been one of the best parts about working for the organization. We have a direct executive sponsor from our SVP of Human Resources, Paul Wolf. He's been amazing for us. So from an inclusion perspective, know that you can count on Indeed to make sure that the jobs that you come across and the companies that we support, also care about these things. I would encourage you to think about ways in which you can position your candidacy through maybe LGBT organizations that you support, or maybe causes that you've participated in. That is all fair game in terms of what you can put on your resume and the things that you can talk about. I am very vocal about my participation here in our Pride group at Indeed on things like my LinkedIn profile and my resume so that employers know that that's important to me. So as for our agenda today, this is what I really want to talk about. I want to give you a snapshot into really the impact that COVID-19 has had on hiring through the data that we can provide you through an Indeed perspective. I then want to walk you through how specifically you can find work on our website and some of the things that we have done to innovate tools for you to make you appear in more searches and allow you to find jobs faster, especially since everything is kind of in flux and changing right now. I want to talk to you about how you can position yourself as a candidate on our site, and really just a candidate in general, especially during turbulent times. And what I'm going to do is then give you tips on virtual interviewing, which is really kind of the trend that we're seeing right now, and probably is going to be here for the long haul in terms of the ways in which you are going to actually talk to and communicate with potential employers. We even have a new virtual interviewing platform specific to Indeed that a lot of employers are using now to make it easier for you, the job seeker, to not just find work, but to interview for it. And then, of course, we'll leave time for Q&A at the end. And then, of course, like I said, I'll be an ongoing resource for you afterwards. So let's just kind of dive in, right? So what we know is that COVID-19 has been not just a health crisis, but an economic crisis, and it's happening all at once. And it's a heavy lift. We know that there are roughly a little over 30 million people that are unemployed right now, and that furloughs and layoffs are really kind of affecting people everywhere. But there are a lot of things that we can be doing right now to be aware of these things and ways that we can use this information to adapt. What I will say is while I'm not personally an economist, I work with an economist team at Indeed who has been just really wonderful with giving us insight as to really what's going on right now, and I'm going to share some of those things with you. But one of the things that we really do at Indeed on an ongoing basis is we run focus groups and we talk to job seekers to understand really what your biggest concerns are right now. And this is what you've told us. You're mostly concerned about taking a financial hit because of everything that's going on. Maybe you are having to care for loved ones or act as a caretaker, right, for your immediate or your chosen family, right? Safety and security in the workplace, I think, is something that's on top of everyone's mind right now, which is really kind of the reason why remote work has skyrocketed. Even a week into the pandemic, we saw around a 200% lift in searches for remote work opportunities. So I'm going to show you what we did with that and how we adapted. But right, things like maintaining my mental health. I really want to focus on some of those elements today because I've been a job seeker before, right? I've been a candidate. I've been without a job, and I can tell you that it's some of the most stressful times that I've ever experienced. And I know that employers are not great at getting back to people in a timely fashion. And sometimes you feel like you are applying to a job and then it's just kind of falling into a black hole. I want you to know that Indeed is aware of all those things, and we have active programs in place to tackle all those things, and many of which we're going to talk about today. So what you have in front of you is going to be really good in an ongoing capacity, both to use at Indeed and outside of your Indeed search to make sure that we are tackling some of these top concerns. Now, from a data perspective, let's kind of chat about the state of affairs. So what we know is that in analyzing what was really kind of happening with different industries and the ways in which they were having to kind of respond to the pandemic, some sectors were shutting down while other sectors were hiring more. So it kind of creates this uncertain economic path. But what I can share with you is that we have seen so many industries adapt to a remote kind of environment that historically have not been open to it whatsoever. So, even a lot of customer service positions, even a lot of retailers have gone virtual online to provide their customers, avenues of communication through texting and through chat and things like that. So it's highly likely that some of the positions that maybe would have been on site before are completely now virtual. So I'm going to show you where you can find those, what companies are hiring and for what positions that I think might be really helpful for you. What we're seeing overall is that the number of job postings has decreased, and this again is Indeed data. But that to us is not very surprising. When the pandemic hit and everything kind of started taking shape as to the severity of what was going on, a lot of organizations put hiring freezes in place, hiring pauses, indefinite hiring pauses, because they were trying to protect their budgets and their bottom line financials. What I can share with you is that I know a lot of organizations have lifted a lot of those hiring freezes at the beginning of Q3, which is typically around the July 1st timestamp. So if you were applying to jobs before the July 1st date and you weren't hearing anything back, I would encourage you to revisit, because now a lot of companies have a little bit more flexibility. Right, everything has gone to virtual, and this has just created a lot more remote work positions. The only thing that we are unsure of at this time is the severity of a second wave. And so I'm not going to make anything political, right, on today's webinar. But what I will say is please wear a mask if you can to as many places as you can, so that we can mitigate the spread of this disease, so that all of this dust kind of settles faster. What I wanted to share with you is that, from an overall job posting perspective, right, we do see about a 21% decrease year over year. But you can see here, right, that we really took a hit in the April month, but we are on the upswing. So even though we did see higher number of postings, right, in 2018 and 2019, right, we're still kind of on the upswing in 2020. So that is good news. And speaking of good news, right, I want to walk you through all the steps that you can take, even in uncertain times, and the things that you can do to position yourself in a competitive way during this time. So let's chat about Indeed specifically and how you can find work on our website. So what I want to introduce to you is this concept of what we call inbound and outbound. And so what does this really mean? Well, think of it as two lanes of traffic on Indeed. So I don't know if you know this, right? But of course, you as the job seeker, you are going to Indeed.com and you are searching for jobs by typing in what you want to do and where you want to do it. And then what happens, right, is you get a list of job results and all of them populate. I think it's important to note that Indeed is a search engine. It's not a job board. So oftentimes we get questions like, oh, are you like Career Builder or are you like Monster? And the answer is no, actually, because those are what we call static job boards, where employers have to pay to actually be there to post their jobs. The cool thing about Indeed is that we act more like Google, and that we're a search engine, and that every single day we go out multiple different times. And anytime a company has posted a new job, we automatically scrape it and bring it into our website. So you can rest assured knowing that every single day there are new jobs on Indeed that weren't there the day before. So there are things that you can do to keep up to date on what types of positions have been posted. So what I mean by this two lanes of traffic is that as you are searching for jobs and applying to them, recruiters are also using Indeed from a back-end access perspective, and they are searching resumes on our database to see who is available for work. So if you didn't know before, you can actually go to Indeed, create a profile, fill out some assessments to really understand, how you can present your skills, and then you can upload your resume. And what's really great about this is that once you do that, then recruiters who are going into our site on the back end and saying, I'm looking for someone with 3 years of experience who has already been a call center representative at maybe these 5 organizations, you would then populate in their search results, and then they can send you a message proactively to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I found you. It looks like you have the skill sets needed that we're looking for. Would you be open to a conversation? And that's going to come right into your inbox with whatever email you use to sign up for Indeed. So if you haven't done that yet, it's going to be a really helpful tool for you. Now, something that we've done is we've created new paths of navigation during this time to help you find jobs faster. So the first thing that you can do that you weren't able to do before is search for remote positions. So you can either search for this in the what box or in the where box. Before, we used to always have specific jobs tethered to a city or a location that they were at. But because so many companies now are moving all of their positions to online work, they are less concerned about where the position is located, and they're more concerned with who is the right fit for that role. So that's actually kind of great news. If I can see any silver lining throughout this process, or at least throughout this pandemic, it's that the floodgates have kind of opened into what opportunities are available because you're no longer constricted to a geographical area. So know that you can use the word remote specifically to identify what positions are now available. A great thing too that I wanted to highlight is that once you've actually gone in and identified what roles you like and that you want to actually go for, you can set up a job alert, and there's a button right there when you find your search results, so that anytime a new job populates with the keywords that you've entered, we will then send you an email to let you know what jobs are new on Indeed. So it's kind of a way for us to lift some of that work off of your plate for you, so that you can be constantly kept up to date. And these are going to go directly to your Indeed app. So if you haven't downloaded the Indeed app yet, I would highly recommend that you do that so that you can stay as up to date as possible on all the new jobs that are listed. Now, one of the cool things that we've also done is what we call ready to work. And this is a hashtag. Something that you can do is you can tag your resume with this hashtag in your Indeed profile to let recruiters know who are using our Indeed resume platform that you are raising your hand to say, I'm urgently looking for a job. So if you identify with that statement, this is going to be great for you. Something that we have done in the backend resume portal for recruiters is we've created a filter for them to select that basically says, click here to identify which job seekers are ready to work right now. So what's great about that is if you do decide to use this hashtag and you're urgently looking for a job, when you have your resume uploaded, it's going to be a great way to get yourself in front of those recruiters even faster. Another way to do this, instead of manually tagging your resume with the hashtag, is when you'll probably notice that in your search results on Indeed, about halfway down, embedded in some of those job postings, is going to be this box right here that says, are you ready to work now? And then you would select yes to toggle this button on to let recruiters know that you are available now. And then what we'll do is we'll automatically add that hashtag to your Indeed resume, update your profile, and then of course, let recruiters know that you are available for work immediately. So like I said, if you do have an urgent need to make some cash, regardless of what type of industry or role, this is going to be a great way to do that when you're actually running searches on Indeed. Okay. Now let's talk about how to position yourself as a strong candidate, not just on our platform, but in general. So one of the things that I want you to be aware of is regardless of the type of position or role that you've had in the past, you do have skill sets that can be cross-functional across multiple types of roles. And what do I mean by that? This is also what we call transferable skill sets. So if you have worked in the past, let's say at a restaurant, and you used Aloha as the computer screen system where you input orders, that would be an example of technology literacy. Strong communication. If you've been in some sort of a customer service position in the past, where you've had to resolve issues for customers, that would be great. It does not matter what type of position you've had in the past. You could have been a barista and talked about the ability to multitask right, and juggle multiple things at one time, to take complex orders and translate that easily for team members in a quick and efficient way. There are tons of ways that you can position yourself as a strong candidate based on what you've worked on in the past. This can also apply to any place you've ever volunteered, or if you've ever participated in a community event where you are helping to organize a group of people or maybe a program. All of these things would be great to identify on your resume, because those keywords here, these types of keywords are the same types of keywords that recruiters use when they're searching you on the back end for what types of skill sets they're looking for. So this could be a really helpful tool for you when you are really wanting to carve out your candidacy on Indeed. When you think about your resume, so I wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper into this for you. So what I would recommend is when you are searching for jobs, instead of maybe just searching for a title or a keyword on Indeed, one of the things that you can do is you can search for companies on Indeed in your area that are hiring. So what I would recommend is identify companies that really speak to you. If it's an organization that has a mission or a vision statement that means a lot to you, or maybe especially a company that is very open to diversity and inclusion, that's also a phrase that I would recommend searching for, because that's going to really present you with companies that are more inclusive in nature, and that's a really good thing. One of the things that attracted me to Indeed right off the bat is the fact that they even had a pride group. We have a Black inclusion group. We have an employee resource group dedicated to people with disabilities. That to me really stood out as a competitive edge as an employer, and a lot of companies have those. So I would encourage you to use those types of keywords and approaches to your search. What I would love for you to do on your resume is include a one-sentence summary about who you are and what you believe in, or what you're looking to do. Recruiters spend about anywhere between 30 seconds to 45 seconds reviewing a resume, but it only takes about 6 seconds to make a first impression on a recruiter. So having that summary up at the top, again, maybe one sentence, could be very helpful. Identify all those transferable skill sets on your resume, and I want you to include both hard and soft skills, right? So, customer service, public speaking, whatever that might look like, interpersonal communication, but then any certifications that you have, or if you've passed any tests, that could be another really great way to beef up your resume to help you stand out. Once you do that, right, once you get your resume up to snuff, you've gotten it uploaded to Indeed. One thing that I want you to do is just market yourself online with that resume. So while, yes, of course, I'm biased because I work at Indeed and I want you to know that this is an available resource for you, there are also other places online for you to market yourself. So connect with recruiters on social media profiles. LinkedIn is a great resource. I worked at LinkedIn for 4 years prior to coming to Indeed. So I speak that language well too. And I would be willing to bet that you probably have LinkedIn and Indeed open in 2 separate tabs next to each other during your search. I would recommend that you make sure that your profile on LinkedIn is as close to your resume as possible, so that it's a consistent experience for recruiters when they are searching for you. Think about, publishing blog posts and articles that showcase your own unique experiences, either in tech or in, other industries that you might, think could be relatable. And then something to maybe keep in mind is to audit your personal social media. Maybe set that Instagram profile to private. Same thing with, maybe changing your name on Facebook, specifically during your job search. If there's anything on your personal social media feeds that you think could at all jeopardize your candidacy, you just want to make sure that you are catching those up front. Virtual hiring events. So oftentimes pre-pandemic, what a lot of companies would do is they would host on-site hiring events where they interviewed multiple people at one time. A lot of that has transitioned virtually. So it's highly likely that if you do get an interview with an employer, that they're going to ask to speak with you either over Zoom or another video platform, or they might invite you to a group event, like a hiring event, where they can interview you and quickly either offer you next steps, or and sometimes we've actually been seeing on-site or on-the-spot offers, which is great, which is going to help you kind of mitigate that long, arduous process of searching for a job, interviewing, and then finally accepting an offer. So what I wanted to do is just give you a sneak peek into ways that you can do that. We partner with a lot of organizations on virtual hiring events, and those are going to populate in search results in your feed. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you do find an event, specifically once you're searching for jobs that looks great, make sure that you fill out that RSVP form and then check your email for a confirmation. Once you do that, you will be put into the queue, and then you will be given a time to actually then dial in to the actual platform with the link associated so that you can come in and you can meet the recruiter. This is going to be a full-fledged interview. So what I would encourage you to do, right, is prepare for the interview, which I'm going to kind of walk you through accordingly, and then hopefully usher you into easily getting the job. So how do you prepare for this? How do you make sure that you are that you stand out and that you are well prepared for a video interview? So here are the things that I have found to be most helpful. First and foremost, obviously choose a quiet location. You want to make sure that you are as free from distractions as possible. What I would maybe recommend for you is if you have your Gmail open in the background or any sort of notification system in your computer or on your phone, iPad, whatever that might be, make sure that you have all those notifications turned off so that you are not bugged during your interview and then kind of sideswiped by a notification ding. Find your light. So this is a fun little tip that I can offer you, but I always try to sit in front of a window. So I'm actually facing my dining room window right now. And what that does is it just creates better light for yourself. So it presents you in a more awake way. And honestly, it just looks better. It's going to make you feel a little bit more confident about yourself. And I certainly know that that's important to me when I'm interviewing because you want to put your best foot forward. So sit in front of your window or buy a ring light. They're like $30 on Amazon or something like that. I think that's a great way to feel extra confident when you're presenting yourself to someone new for the first time. I would recommend cleaning your space. A second grade teacher of mine once told me, organize space, organize mind. And that has quite literally stuck with me in the 33 years that I have now been on this planet. So, what I would encourage you to do is maybe tidy up the kitchen, tidy up your room, make your bed. All these weird little tricks actually help you present yourself in a more composed way when you are actually interviewing. Plus, it looks better to the interviewer it kind of gives them, more of an insight as to who you are and what your space looks and feels like. Test your technology. So the last thing that you want to happen is, right, you get on a Zoom and then all of a sudden your sound's not working or they can't see you. Actually, a great example of this, as the team and I were preparing for this very webinar today, my computer was freezing up on me. So I had to go through, I had to restart my computer, and then I went in and I tested the way in which I presented to the team so that they could give me some feedback on how it looked. Make sure that you do this before your interview, because once you get all those little nuances out of the way, it's going to feel so much better when you're actually inside of the interview window itself. What I want you to think about in terms of attire is dress for the role. So for example, there's a reason why I'm not wearing a suit today. I thought it would be more appropriate to wear my Indeed Pride shirt, right? Because it's the very shirt that I would wear during a parade, and that's my audience that I'm speaking to. So if you are interviewing in a more traditional type of an organization, dress for that. If you're interviewing for a tech company, maybe look at some photos online as to what other people are wearing in that space. That way, then you kind of are dressing more of the part. Think of yourself. This is advice that I give to friends and family, but I certainly know that when I'm interviewing or when I'm talking to an organization for the first time, think of it like you're going on in an audition. For my friends in LA, this will resonate with you, right? But think of it as an audition. You dress for the part and you play the role. Same kind of psychology applies here. And then enter in the chat early. If you are there before the interview gets there, that showcases that you have really put in the time and the effort to present yourself in a fashionable way that is on time. Very, very important. So what I want you to remember too is as things are kind of transitioning to this virtual environment online, there are some scams out there, and there are some people who are going to try to trick you into thinking that, there are opportunities available that there aren't. What I'm happy to share with you is that Indeed specifically, we have a search quality team. We call them Squall for short, but they essentially audit every single job that goes onto our site. So at least on Indeed anyway, you're not going to be positioned for multi-level marketing schemes or anything like that, or unpaid roles. Those are all categorized and kind of audited and then pulled down off of our site. So all the jobs that you see on Indeed are going to be authentic, but I just want you to be aware, be wary of, chat-only platforms, giving anyone out your information that, you haven't personally connected with. one of the things that we don't ask for on your Indeed resume when you upload it to our site is your phone number, because we want to protect you from anyone coming into the site or pretending to be a recruiter just to get your phone number. So unless you share it personally with a recruiter, you only get contacted via email. Okay, and if you see a scam or anything fishy on Indeed, please report it immediately. It goes directly to our team that manages that for you, so that it's always a clean, consistent experience when you're using our site. And then finally, I just really want to close out with a couple of words of wisdom. Like I said, I know that times are tough right now and that things can look a little grim. We will come out of this. There will be a vaccine eventually. And when there is, everything is going to return to more of a state of in-person events and things like that. But this whole idea of returning back to normal wasn't really working for us. So I want you to think positively about where you can go with your career. I want you to also reflect maybe on what this time has taught you. If you've taken this time to learn a new language, get a new certification, one of the common questions that we are seeing recruiters asking in interviews is, what have you learned during this downtime? Or what have you done with this downtime that has been most meaningful for you? And being able to come to the table prepared with an answer like that is really going to suit you well. And it just showcases to recruiters and to companies that you know how to use your time efficiently, you know how to use it wisely and to your benefit. So I always just like to kind of highlight that, because at the end of the day, we just really need to be patient and proactive. This is also really applicable if you haven't heard back from an employer. We hear this all the time. What I would recommend that you do is not just blindly apply to roles, but connect with a recruiter on LinkedIn from that company. Try to personalize your search as much as possible. Make sure, again, that you have audited all of your online profiles, your presence on social media, so that doesn't really play a factor. But be patient, but be proactive. Make sure that you are following up whenever possible, so that you can really stand out as a candidate for that role. What I am going to recommend for you is we have a new platform called Community. So if you go to Indeed.com and if you scroll down to the very, very bottom of the page, it's very small. It's a link, but it's our online community forum where job seekers can come in and ask questions about career tips and seek answers from career coaches. We have people quite literally who are actively responding to these threads from Indeed. So it's a great place to go to seek out information. And then this is the direct link to the website that I was referring to earlier in terms of our COVID-19 Resource Center. This is also a really great place where you can look to see all of our webinars that are available for free, work from home guides, additional video interviewing tips, and things like that. So that's essentially my dog and pony for you today. I hope that you learned something new. I would love to, take some time to answer any questions that you might have. I know Valerie has some questions teed up. We want to make this time as valuable for you as possible. So feel free to, chat those questions into us, and then we will, answer them as best as possible. So I'm going to discontinue sharing my screen so that you can see me, and then whatever questions you might have, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Oh my God, that was so great. Thank you so much, Taylor. We really have learned so much. I really appreciate it. And there's so many things that you talked about. I had, no idea that you had the here to help, and then the job seeker, opportunities where people can ask questions among, in their communities. So if you've just joined us after our webinar began, welcome to Equality California's 6th webinar in our COVID series. Today, we're talking about navigating job searches and how to get remote work during COVID. Our speaker, who has just finished presenting, is Taylor Meadows. He's with Indeed, one of the world's largest search engine companies. And if you've got questions for Taylor, please put them in the Q&A box. He will be happy to answer them, and we can also, we'll be sending out a link to our webinar. So if you join a little bit later, if you're interested in following what he had to say, you can, you'll get a link to the webinar, and you can follow up with him on LinkedIn and some of the other resources he's presented. So I believe that we have a question from Vanessa, and it says, "What to do about gaps in my resume? How would you deal with employment gaps?"
That is such a good question, Vanessa. Thank you for asking. So employment gaps are not necessarily a bad thing, right? Sometimes the employment gap could be that you had to leave your role to, care for a family member. It could have been, right, a furlough or a layoff, but it also could have been a termination. I know several people who have been terminated from jobs because maybe it's a performance, a performance issue. What I would recommend is come to the table and have an answer, right, for why you took that leave. You don't have to give all of the details as to why that happened. Specifically, if it was a termination, what I can share with you is that legally, if an existing employer, maybe or a prospective employer that you're applying to, reaches out to your former employer, they can't say how you departed the company. They can only tell you, what from when you started and when you finished. So know that that's a protection for you. But feel free to just maybe even proactively say, hey, you probably noticed a gap in my resume. I'd love to just briefly explain to you, why that was. Something else that you might be able to do is on your LinkedIn profile, you can actually maybe instead of post this as one of your jobs, but if you took a sabbatical or if you have a length of a period of time you have off, maybe post that on your profile and then just briefly explain it so that the recruiter can actually be privy to that information ahead of time, so that you don't even have to explain it. But I do think that there is strength in truth and being forthcoming about what you needed to do for yourself, even if it was self-care. That's okay. Explaining that to a recruiter, many of them understand. I mean, have probably experienced that themselves.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we have another question. It says, any recommendations for individuals who've been furloughed for an unspecified period of time and discouraged from seeking outside employment? Should they be applying on Indeed as an immediately available person for hire? Or are there any recommendations for folks who've been reduced to part-time work by their current employer and maybe on the fence for seeking other full-time work?
Yeah, so I think there are some things that you can do to be flexible. So first and foremost, right, you need to determine for yourself, what the situation is. If you've been furloughed, right, but you are needing to make, some cash and maybe, you've reached a place of moving on. I don't think there's anything wrong with applying for jobs and interviewing for jobs. Because at the end of the day, if you are extended an offer, it's ultimately up to you whether or not you accept, right? So it's kind of actually a little bit of a safety net. So you do know that there's opportunity to come back to your employer after the furlough is over. But why not apply and get your name out there and interview for roles? Plus, it's really good practice. I think that that's great. Something else that you might look at too, though, is gig work. So, gig work is defined as, the Ubers, the Lyfts, the DoorDashes of the world, kind of that on-demand work that is really flexible. Something that I would encourage you to think about is, let's say that you decided to, drive your car and make some cash with Uber for a while. If that's not something that you wanted to highlight on your resume, then don't put it on your resume. It could just be a means to make some cash. What I really like about gig work now is that you do have the ability to cash out either on a daily, a weekly, or a monthly cadence. So if you really are just needing some quick cash and you want to drive for 2 weeks, that would be something that you can do in the meantime that would help sustain your finances, but not kind of take you away from a full-time position. So if maybe you kept your part-time job and then maybe picked up some hours in that way, that might be something that you can do to just make some cash in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. We had a webinar a couple of weeks ago about entrepreneurship and how creative a lot of people are becoming, and finding opportunities in this COVID crisis. To put themselves forward and to be more maybe risk prone than they ever had been before. So
get creative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. Get creative. Make some masks. Whatever. I'm not a sewer, but if I was, that would be one of the first things that I do. So yeah, absolutely use this time to get creative and see how maybe volunteer somewhere. I actually had a friend of mine begin volunteering at a pet shelter because he had so much free time with the pandemic, and it actually evolved into them offering him a part-time job. So you never know how things can evolve, but just getting your name out there and getting that involvement and that engagement, right, could create some stickiness to your resume that could help you in the long run.
Mm-hmm. So there's another question that came in that said, what are some red flags that recruiters might deem my resume not being a good match?
Good question. So the first thing that comes to mind is grammar.
Mhm.
um, Make sure that you are proofreading that resume as best as you can. A helpful tip that was offered to me, I think in like middle school, quite literally, is read your resume from the bottom up. When you read things out of order, you are more apt to catch mistakes. So grammatical and spelling errors is really important. Making sure that things are capitalized in the right place. Um, I wouldn't know if I don't know if I would classify this as maybe a red flag, but formatting is really important. So I would say on your resume, if you are going to be submitting your resume anywhere, never submit it in a Word doc format or Google Doc format. Always download a copy of your resume in PDF format so that it's locked in its format so that it doesn't get jumbled around based on the settings of someone else's computer or their ATS, which is also called an applicant tracking system, which is when you apply to a job, employers use systems called applicant tracking systems to kind of organize all of their candidates. So that could be really important for you. And then I would say, if you've ever um, if you've ever participated, in like a multi-level marketing type of a position or anything like that, I think just being honest about that and not trying to hide or kind of diminish the opportunity that you had is important. Anytime you're vague, I think that is kind of a red flag. Um, and then actually, I inspired my own thought. Something else that you can do is input as many data points around results as possible. So include numbers. I think that, when I was saying, anytime you're vague and you can't back up your experience with statistics or an ROI, I think that always halts people as well. So if, you can talk about the number of customers that you helped, the number of situations you remedied, the number of, the number of sales that you had in a given quarter or a month, or something like that. Any way that you can quantify your resume, the better off you'll be.
Awesome. Well, we have a question from someone, I think,
Okay.
that they're inspired by your title, which is Indeed Evangelist. So it says, Taylor, your job sounds super interesting and would love to hear more about how we can find these types of roles. What educational and work experience are necessary for roles like yours?
Yeah, so I'm really glad that you asked this question, and here's why. Because I would say that I'm an example of a candidate with an unconventional background. So I graduated with a degree in advertising. I thought that I wanted to be Don Draper on Madison Avenue, right, in an agency world, creating slogans and campaigns and logos for companies. I graduated from college in 2009 during the recession. So when I was looking for those types of jobs, they just weren't available. A lot of companies were no longer outsourcing those types of roles, and they were all going in-house. So I was kind of right SOL in that way. And so what I did is I focused more on companies that I really respected and got my foot in the door there, so that I could passionately speak to the brand that I was working for. So in my case, the very first job I ever had outside of school was working at an Apple store. I was that person when you walk in, I was holding the iPad, checking you in for a Genius Bar appointment. That was my job for like the 7 months. And then that turned into a 5-year career at Apple where I was, working through various different positions in a retail store. But that gave me my first kind of taste into passionately speaking about brands that I really liked and that I supported and believed in. But it also gave me insight into a really great employee experience. And so I was able to kind of leverage that experience to really hone in my interpersonal skills, my presentation skills. It gave me an opportunity to lead up new hire training. And so I was able to kind of then like take material and present it. And then that kind of evolved into the rest of the positions that I had, because even when I was at LinkedIn, a lot of the talking that I was doing was education for clients on ways that they can optimize either products that they purchased, their online presence. And then Indeed kind of came along and knocked on my door and said, we want to we're creating a role where we essentially want people to, take our message out into the world and educate people into all the ways in which we are elevating the job search game, which was like right up my alley. So it just goes to show that regardless of, the type of background that you come from and the education that you come from, and I came from a Big Ten school. I went to Ohio State, go Bucks. It just, you can forge your own path. I think that is one of the key messages that I always am passing along to friends, family, job seekers. Like, what I would encourage you to do, here's a good exercise for you, is, take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, right? So draw a table, and I want you to title it skill sets. And on the left-hand side, I want you to write inherent, and on the right-hand side, I want you to write learn. What inherent skill sets mean, or what are skill sets that you have that you're just naturally good at? Like, are you just naturally good at talking to people, or are you naturally better at math, right? Like, getting through calculus in college was like the bane of my existence. I am not a math guy. I have someone do my taxes for me, right? But I can get up on stage and talk in front of people. So that's something that I inherently have always been good at, that I lean into. But what are some things that I have learned, right? I've learned how to use like video interviewing platforms. I've learned recruiting. I've learned, different, Google Suite, Microsoft Productivity Suite, all those things that are skills that I learned through education. So what that's going to help you do is really kind of assess how you can apply those skills to a variety of different roles. And it's going to really help you lean into, what am I really good at just naturally? And then how can I apply that to my job search? That's what I did. And that's how I kind of found the job that I'm in now.
That's awesome. So we have two questions that are somewhat related. They have to do with keywords. So the first one is, can you speak to the need for specific keywords to sort of get past the electronic gatekeeper? And then another one that's sort of related, is it best to start it with broad or specific keyword searches?
Both great questions. So what I would recommend for you is, first and foremost, identify jobs that sound really interesting to you. So when you're running it, right, if you are, so let me answer the second question first, and then I'm going to come back to that. So I always say start, broad, because what you can do is then you can narrow down using search filters. Like, let's say that you are looking for, you're looking for a registered nurse position. You can use that title as kind of like a broad beginning search. But then you can get in, once you get into your search results, you can use filters to dwindle down by certifications, years of experience, everything like that. So that would be the way to kind of, pitch those initial results. But then once you start finding jobs that you like, A, save those jobs, and then B, look to see what keywords are in those jobs that you want. So, if, for example, a dear friend of mine who lives in California now, comes from a customer success background, but had a channel partner title that he last had, that he is now working towards, achieving again. And he actually just told me yesterday on the phone, he goes, changing my search and changing my resume to reflect the words channel and partner allowed me to refine my search results and allow me to be found by way more recruiters. So I would say that the best place for inspiration for keywords is identifying the keywords in that job description and then of the company. So if you are interested in working at Microsoft, go to Microsoft's website or their corporate career site on Indeed, and see what keywords they are using to identify their mission and their vision, and then use those as kind of a keyword trail when you are then navigating the way in which you are searching for jobs, because it's going to more closely then match you to the same types of keywords that they're looking for based on their criteria. So that would be my answer around that in terms of keyword inspiration and where to find it.
And then what about the specific question about the electronic gatekeepers? How to sort of get around, sort of those websites that basically sort of cull through, and maybe a human being's not necessarily screening them in the very beginning.
Yeah. Well, at least from an Indeed perspective, what I can say is going through and making sure that your resume is not generic is the best thing that you can do. And again, identifying those hard skills and those soft skills, that's really how you get around those, because it's those really generic resumes that just have interacted with multiple people. Like, it's those types of things that kind of lock you in to, and that's how those systems catch you, because there's nothing specific for them to go off of. But what I would also recommend is if you have, diversify your resume. So, one of the things I would recommend is if identifying as someone who, is LGBT. Anytime that you've worked, like actually using LGBT in your resume is going to help you get around, right, those very platforms. Talking about volunteering experience, talking about projects that you worked on outside of your immediate role, or different people that you supported. Anytime that you can get that much more specific in your resume, that's what helps you get around, right? Helps you get around those. You might even run, depending on what industry you're looking for. This is literally just, I'm pulling this out of my pocket right now. Maybe just run a Google search for, trending keywords in this industry, whatever that industry might be. And then at that point, then you can then know, okay, what keywords do I need to be aware of that are trending, currently in my industry that could help you with that. That might be something that you can do to just make sure that your resume and your profile is tailored to that specific type of role and company that you're wanting to work for.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And also, as you said, going to the website and, pulling out their mission statement and sort of saying how they package, their needs is probably the best way to do it. We have this is a really good question. Should individuals still apply for positions even if they don't have the required number of years of experience listed in the job description, or if they feel qualified for the position? Or do you think that would be an immediate red flag for an employer?
Yeah, so the answer is going to be a little subjective. So here's what I can tell you is that one of the chief complaints that we get from employers specifically is that they have an overabundance of people who are applying to their jobs that are not qualified. So what I would recommend that you do is if you are close to the years of experience that they are looking for, I would say okay, that would be a different story than if you are way off. Like if they're looking for someone with 8 years of experience and you have 3, it's just not going to be a match for the role. So I would say, and this is what I advise job seekers on all the time: self-select into applying to a job and self-select out of applying to a job, right? It's going to definitely be a quality over quantity game. So keep that in mind. The last thing that you want to do is appear in a recruiter's inbox and have it be so far off from what they're looking for that they just don't ever get in touch with you. I think that the other thing that you can then do is if you are applying to a position, make sure that your resume and your profile reflect the quality of work that they might be looking for. So if I know some recruiters that are willing to overlook years of experience if someone has worked on a project that exactly meets the criteria of what they are looking for in that role. So again, that quantity over quantity, quality over quantity game. But like I said, I would encourage you, if you don't meet the years of experience or it's just not close, as much as you might want to apply for it, I would say consider the quality of your own candidacy first, by the experience that you've had, and then kind of apply all those other filters on top of it. Don't just blindly apply for every job that you can. It's not going to serve you well, and it's going to only be more frustrating for you in the future when you're not getting callbacks.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. We have another question, and it says, after an interview, is it necessary and important to follow up with a thank you note?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. I can't believe I didn't offer that up organically myself. So whoever asked that, bravo to you. Yes, definitely make sure that you follow up. It's really important to say thank you. What I would recommend in your thank you letter, keep it brief. Number one, I'm talking a couple sentences at the very most, but identify something in the conversation that you personally either enjoyed or walked away with. That's going to be very helpful for when recruiters are going back and analyzing finalists. You will stick out to them as a candidate because keep in mind, right, if they're interviewing you, they're probably interviewing other people as well. And identifying something from that conversation that you really, right, it really stuck with you, it's gonna allow them to refresh their memory and identify you as a candidate. So absolutely yes, do it immediately. What I could recommend is once we return back to normal and things aren't all virtual, if you do have an on-site interview, this is a little trick that I've played in the past that has worked in my favor. I actually pre-wrote the beginning of a thank you note prior to walking in for my interview. And then I actually filled out the rest of it once I got back down into the lobby, and then went back up and gave it to the receptionist and had the name of the person I interviewed with on front of the envelope, so that they had a physical thank you card indicating what I appreciate about the interview before the day was even over, and it actually landed me a job. So that could be something that you could test out for yourself, just to allow yourself to stand out.
Now that is elegant. Did you get that tip from your second grade teacher?
No, I made that up. I tried that one myself, and it worked really well. I really wanted that job, so I made sure that I was the standout candidate, regardless of what it took.
That's amazing, Taylor. So I think we're probably getting close to the end of our time. Did you say that people could connect with you on either LinkedIn or some other way? What would be the best way for people to get in touch with you personally, or perhaps register for one of these virtual hiring events that you mentioned?
Yeah. So I'm always open to connecting on LinkedIn, especially right now. I want to be as available for people as possible. Taylor Meadows, you'll find me just by Indeed on LinkedIn. But like I said, go to that COVID resource center. So Indeed.com, link at the very top of the page, and then you can click into what we call our Jobcast. That's run by my friend Brandy at Indeed. She's so wonderful, and puts on so many great webinars that are all free. And there's a variety of different topics. So we have topics on managing your finances during COVID-19. Not just navigating job search, but what to do if you're a transitioning graduate, things like that. So a whole slew of different topics available for you. It's going to be the best place, to kind of a hub for you in navigating your job search right now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, Taylor, you've been amazing today. We really appreciate every minute of your presentation, of your thoughts and all your insights. I'm sure that our audience, not just the ones who are watching today, but others who will be watching in the future, will really be much better positioned to look for jobs remotely, and to follow up and to take advantage of these webinars, and then the emoji that you mentioned where you have your hand up raised, if you're working for looking for work immediately. These are all super helpful tips to help all of us. So,
well, thank you for having me. To all of the job seekers on the call who joined, thank you for your thoughtful questions. I'm here for you as a resource. On behalf of Indeed, sending you lots of love, and any way that we can help, we will.
You're amazing, Taylor. Thank you so much again. Goodbye, everybody, and we'll send you an email about the next webinars coming up.
Cool. Thank you.